All right, everybody. Hello, and welcome back to the In Liberty and Health podcast. Hopefully, wherever, however, and whenever you're listening, hopefully you're doing well. For my fellow friends in Pennsylvania, it is brutal out there. I'm wearing my Pittsburgh hat today, and my guest is, of course, from Pittsburgh as well. So, very, very happy to be kind of sharing a Pittsburgh-based show today and sport my Pittsburgh gear as well. It's like 2 feet of snow out there, which I don't think I've seen in years. It sucks, and I'm reminded why I should have moved to Florida when I had the chance. I shoveled my driveway 3 times. It's not too cold, but it's pretty awful. So, anyways, in other news, Slow Down is out now. So if you are a fan of my band, if you're a fan of metal, if you're a fan of rock, please, 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 please go check out A Common Crown Slow Down. It's literally everywhere you could find music. I know you'll like it. I'm very, very happy with it. And the feedback we've gotten on it has been nothing but positive. And of course, I did a Substack on that. So if you go to the Great Megalodon.substack, I think it is, you should be able to find that, or just look up the Great Megalodon, A Common Crown. It should come right up in your web feed. So that's all good. Tonight, I have a return guest, good friend of mine. He was on episode 22, I want to say 22 or 21. And then I think we've done about 3 or 4 episodes since. We also did the 2024 debates, which was a lot of fun and very interesting. And a lot has changed since then, and he's been saying that he's wanted to talk to me about this kind of stuff that's going on here. And then he's also had a journey of faith, and I'm really interested in all that kind of stuff. So I'm sure today's show will be really, really good. But before we get into all that, please make sure you go to all the links below where you can find myself, everything I've got going on. And of course, I forgot to add some of his links, but I'll make sure I put those down there after the fact. And go to tigerfitness.com, use the code Kyle at checkout to let them know that I sent you and that you support the Matovic family and everything going on over here. And of course, Fox and Sons Coffee, use code Kyle at checkout to let Steve know that you appreciate his coffee and, of course, the Matovic family. So without further ado, let's get into the rest of today's show. And welcoming back to the show, my dear friend, Mr. Shane Chesher. How you doing, brother?
Good, man. Tired from all the shoveling today. It's been crazy. What a day to be inside, though, and talk to you. It'll be a good way to cap it.
Yeah. Honestly, I was kind of thinking the same thing today after, like I said earlier, 3 bouts of shoveling, went out to find salt, couldn't find anything, and then came home like, you know what, I don't want to do anything else today. So for those not familiar, who are you? And what was kind of your story over the last couple of years? Because the reason why I reached out to you was absolutely fascinating, but I want to make sure that everybody who may not have been, with us these past 5 years, I can't believe to say that, if they may not know who you are, let them know who you are now.
Well, I'm just a everyday guy, kind of finding my way, raising 2 daughters, just trying to make it here in America. But been on a journey of faith, as you mentioned earlier, and really my whole life changed along with everybody's life in 2020 when everybody's trees were shaken by COVID. Not only was that like a wake up to the realness of God for me, like I've always believed, but it really started my faith journey. But it really showed me in concrete that we're living in transcendent times, and times that we need to make a stand against tyranny, which I started learning about my rights through Constitution class. Was confident enough to stand up for my rights, and got fired for the COVID mandate in 2021 from Allegheny County. Fought a pro se lawsuit against them. End up settling with the county this past in 2025. Nothing life-changing, but life-changing piece for sure. And it's good to put that chapter behind me. So that was a really cool thing. And I give all the glory to God and all that, because the greatest thing through all this is I put my faith in God and not in a paycheck. And God has moved mountains for me, and moved mountains for my family too. So it's been all that. I guess a little quick little thing too is I put a lot of faith in Donald Trump through this as well. When I started fighting, was it January 6th, 2021. I was also behind Donald Trump when he was shot at in Butler, PA. You can actually see me in the visual.
Mhm.
And, I would say feelings have changed a little bit on him. So I think that's something we're going to probably tap into. But I've learned to put my faith not in man and faith in a high being, faith in Jesus Christ. So, and you won't be disappointed when you do that. So,
Nice, nice. Yeah. Well, um, I didn't know. I probably liked it on Facebook, but obviously our feed and our minds are so inundated with so much stuff all the time that I didn't know that you actually kind of settled the whole 2020 stuff from your end. So I'm really, really glad to hear that. Are there any details you'd be willing to share or want to share about that? Just kind of like it's to go on a slight tangent. It's just kind of crazy to me to think that like we lived through all of that and now it seems like people really forgot. And I was, obviously we were talking to each other way back then, and it sounds crazy to think, oh yeah, that was like 5 years ago, but it's like that was perhaps like the greatest disruptor in the average American's life in the last probably 20 years, since like 9/11. We didn't really have an event like that that really changed the way that I think Americans look at the world and look at their civil liberties.
oh, I mean, yeah, it was life changing for me, but in a wonderful way. And I just feel like God was trying to repurpose my life and recenter my life.
Mhm.
But yeah, and it gave me a sense of purpose, and it gave me. I mean, I wouldn't be on this podcast talking to you if I wouldn't have met you. I wouldn't have met a lot of people that I've met. It really make awesome connections. I really didn't feel like God reoriented my life, and I feel like God did that for a lot of people through this. So I told you I learned my rights, and then I got along with. I met a guy that helped us to file a pro se lawsuit. I helped lead that group. There was 15 of us. Eventually, it got severed, which was a legal tactic. Basically, they separated all of our lawsuits, so we all had individual lawsuits at that point. Since my name was first on it, kind of continued on first, and it was like the legal system is not a friendly one. The judicial system, all that lawsuits, they're not
By
for
design.
they make it really, really difficult and really, really uh there was just so much stress on it, and I was like, my feet were to the fire, I feel like, the whole time in it. So, and that's part of the drag and the that's part of the process. I think they try to wear you out. 90% of lawsuits are settled outside of court. I got into a position where financially it was just best for me, and then more so over, they kind of pushed me into like where the judge wasn't favoring my decisions, and like pushed me into like where was gonna have to pay for a mediation that I couldn't afford.
Mhm.
But really, after I settled, I was still unsure about it. But God just gave me this wonderful feeling of just this relief of like letting go of that, and that's something you can't really put a price on. And I do feel like I held them, somewhat accountable. I'm in a better place. I'm in a better place of work. I just feel all around better. I work at a church now where, my whole family got baptized. My daughter works at that church now, so it's just re-centralized my life and reoriented my life. And you can't really put all price on that. So that's, I think ultimately I won, the day I stood up anyways. So
Mhm.
I do hope somebody gets actual real, like, wins like the whole way, but they make it really, really difficult. The county has all kinds of immunity too. So I was going against Allegheny County government entity. So they have all kinds of ways to wiggle out. Now, private companies, I know we're paying people a lot of money, like life-changing money,
Mhm.
but they don't have the same immunities. So it made our situation a little bit different. So.
Yeah, well, like I said, that's really good stuff to kind of think that I feel like probably a lot of people at that time, and I'm sure you probably shared this feeling at one point or another as well, that like, oh, I'm never going to get out of this. Like, this is a situation that was foisted upon me, and that I did the right thing and stood up for. And this is such like a recurring theme in our country, unfortunately, and it really shouldn't be. That like, if you try to do things the right way, or you stand up for what is seen as like traditional American values, you just get railroaded left and right. where if you're if I hate to put it this bluntly, but if you're a white guy, a white Christian male in the United States of America who's married and has kids, the system will go out of their way to break you, fuck you, and take advantage of you at every expense, and then they'll shove it in your face to tell you that, like, all these other people who have in-group preference and who are using the government to their advantage are doing that specifically at your expense, and it's just so crazy to see that, and, like, I'm glad that, like, you saw some sort of deliverance, if you will, from that situation, but it's like, if you're a married dude in this country, hey, you know what? We're gonna charge you that much more for healthcare. Your wife can't file for this because, well, she's married. Your household, you make too much money to receive this benefit. And like, I'm not saying we should rain free benefits on absolutely everybody. I think you and I both kind of disagree with like raining free money on people. It doesn't fix the problem. But like, you would think that like the stock that's holding everything up, which is largely working Americans, and of course there's black Americans at work too, but like if I'm talking about like the general populace of America that's married and working, they're the ones holding this whole system up. You'd think they would stop and be like, "Hey, maybe we should like give these guys a break. Like, let's at least relieve some taxes." Nope, we'll just punish them all the more. It's just a constant thing.
It's a slave system, sadly. I mean, it's a sinister way to look at it, but we're a bunch of rubes and they just use us, so
Yeah, so I know we probably wouldn't I didn't initially plan on focusing on this, but now that you mentioned it, I do actually kind of want to focus on this a little bit. So it does seem like more recently you've kind of taken a more of, how do I want to put this? You took your faith more seriously more recently, where like you said, you've always believed, and I always consider myself an agnostic theist where I have no claim either way. I just don't know. As I get older and as I watch my daughter, kind of grow up and I observe successful cultures throughout the world, you do notice a pattern that, like, hey, tight family structures and typically religious structures are kind of a staple of like that success. Obviously, this nation is founded on Christian values, which is what largely makes this country, at least the potential to be the greatest country in the world, is that we are founded on, as much as people don't like the terminology, but like liberal Christian values, and not like liberal in today's sense, like classical liberal, right? Those values and Christianity is what made this country so great. We're obviously far away from that because we're no longer a Christian nation in the sense that like the majority of the country is Christian, but like, um, that seems to be what makes a country, specifically this country, great. Why did you choose to start taking your faith as seriously as you have more recently? I want to say it's probably around 2023 or 2024 that I noticed that it seemed like you started to take it more seriously. Is that accurate? And what am I missing here?
well, I mean, so when I got fired, like I really did put my faith in God. It did make sense for me financially to get fired. Um, and I never planned to get like rich from it either. So that's part of the reason I settled as well. But I just was like, I'm standing up for what's right. I know that and God's going to take care of me. And when you take a leap of faith like that, and then you watch God like literally move for you, I mean, it's life changing. But like I said, I always did believe. I got to give a lot of credit to my wife um, to help push me and lead me in that way, which I should have been leading her if in the correct manner, which is a great Bible principle, biblical principle. But I give a lot of credit to her. I had a great foundation as a child. I just I mean, you kind of live a life where you're like I started taking it more seriously because I understood that that basically that it's real. I started thinking there's a Bible verse that the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. So when I'm starting to realize there's a creator and realizing like, looking around at the world, I think it's hard to believe that this wasn't created by some kind of a superior being. I mean, it's just like there's an author to this story.
Mhm.
There's design, there's a creator. Like there when it's to me it's just like self-evident as the founders would say
Mhm.
that there is a creator. But so I started looking into that, and then I've always believed in some form or fashion that I was going to be here for these kind of times, and I think that's being emboldened in me every day because I think it becomes more and more transparent that we're living on obviously transcendent times, but I feel like times that are leading to times that are referred to in the Bible. And that would be apocalyptic, whichever end times, whichever you would want to point at too. And that could be like really fearful or fear mongering for people. But when you have a faith in a God that tells you that this is going to happen and that he will take care of you through it, and that there's a promise that all of this is temporary and what is eternal is in him, you don't have any fear. You have a peace, that a Bible verse that surpasses all understanding. And I had a peace when I was getting fired. Like, I just had a peace that I was going to be okay. And I have that same peace now, that, with everything that's crazy happening, and I share it sometimes, and I'm like, oh, wow, nobody shouldn't get scared by this. But meanwhile, in the background, people are fearful of it. And I didn't understand it because I have this like strong faith. So I guess that's all. I guess that's a really long way of explaining why I started taking it more seriously. And lastly, I would say just being in this church environment, I was almost at some point in time like, oh, you don't have to be a Christian and go to a church, but being around like-minded Christians and people that hold you accountable, and then just being around people that think similarly to you, and then praying together and all that stuff, learning together, it really does help, strengthen your faith. So.
Mhm. Right. Well, that's all really, really good stuff. Like I said, I kind of notice that a lot of people do really focus on obviously national politics, and I get it because it's sexy. You can be combative with people, and there's narratives that are interesting, and there's always something new to click on. Like I'm 0% above any of this, but I feel like what you laid out there is something that's incredibly important, and that's the church structure where, probably 100, maybe not even 100 years ago, but there were church structures in communities that were largely a staple of what held that community together. And then if you fell on hard times, okay, well, you'd go to your church. If you need confessional, then that's always there for you. Um, all the different denominations, regardless, I have a lot of friends that are like Eastern Orthodox Christians, some friends that are, um, I can't believe, like Catholics, Roman Catholics, Protestants. It seems like generally a lot of these people who are grounded in like these communities of like-minded people typically are better off. And um, when I talk to people about this, every time I hear or I see somebody kind of doing like the Reddit tier atheist knocking religion, I'm like, man, there's that saying, don't tear down a fence until you understand why it was put up. And that's kind of the way I think a lot of people who knock religion fail to look at it as. It's like, well, this structure is really built America, which is the greatest civilization known to man. I mean, it built the world's most powerful government, which, like it or not, that just is what it is. And not to mention also, the Industrial Revolution, which completely changed the entire world, the way we look at technology, brought about the greatest wealth that the world has ever seen. Like, you can't just say, "Oh, yeah, well, that's, the flying spaghetti monster," or something like that. Like, to hand wave that away to me seems incredibly ridiculous and naive because clearly there's a foundation here that allowed a people, which once again, it does require a Christian nation and a Christian people to build the civilization that we have today. We would not be talking right here without Christianity and the founding of America. Because there was a people, and once again, there was a moral principle amongst those people that allowed this country to be formed into what it is today. And it feels like we're so far away from that. But at the same time, I almost share that feeling of security and peace because I know that, like, I think the core of this nation and the people of this nation who are largely Christian in some regard or another, um, I have faith in them. I don't have faith in politicians, but I have faith in that is stronger than any adversary or adverse reaction that could be imposed upon it.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it's no secret. People do try to debate it, but this nation truly was built on Christian principles. And they took principles straight from the Bible. I mean, talking from like Leviticus, and I mean, just straight from books from the Bible, to create the laws that they did. And the Declaration of Independence shows a lot about the Constitution. I seen a video on the CIA, a guy that says they started trying to eliminate Christianity in the CIA because they say Christianity is the one religion that can't be controlled, in the sense of you're not going to tell me I'm not going to stand for my faith or disregard my faith. Like, there's people that die for it, because and that's a scary thing to a government that wants to control you. So I think it's another strength of Christianity too, is it's the one religion that is opposed by all, the one that's kind of pushed back on the most. And I think there's a reason for that, because it's the realness of it. So, but yeah, I think what you said there was really, I mean, spot on. I think it is why we have this beautiful country, and it's part of the reason I started fighting for this country. And like, when I was learning, I learned so much, like through that Constitution class, and I learned so much about it's part of making me what cared about it and wanted to fight a little bit more for it. So, and that's why I still speak out about it, because I do feel like there's still, we have kids, like you have a 6-month-old, I have kids, and we just gotta put it all on the table, because we don't want to look back and say, we didn't fight for them. So
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more because, and one thing that I try to do as much as I can is speak the truth as I see it because, I would not be able to die a happy death. And this all sounds arbitrary right now, but like in my mind, I wouldn't be able to look at my daughter and smile or feel good about myself if I know I didn't speak the truth at every single given moment. If there is something going on in the world and I feel what I say is true and my understanding of something is true and correct, then it is bestowed upon me as a father and as a man in this country who's born here and whose, family has owned businesses for now 3 generations and maybe four. It's incumbent upon me to speak the truth and do what I can to at least leave this country a little bit better than I found it. And it is tragic that we did have a generation, and I know a lot of people throw shit the boomers way, and I'm kind of doing that here as well, that didn't quite look at their kids as like, oh, we're leaving this country to them, and like we should want them to be better off. But the 60s with the Hart-Celler Act and then mass amnesty and all these things, it's like you're actually making your country worse off for the next generations. And it's really, really sad to see that like the entitlement go through ages and ages and ages. So, like, when I see people who support socialism, I'm not saying that it's right because it's not. But what I'm saying is, I understand why they feel that way because they look at the world around them. You can't afford a house. Your country's involved in all these wars. They're sending billions of dollars offshore for God knows what. And then you're told you have to shut up and support it or else you're a bigot, you're an anti Semite, you're whatever. Um, so they turn around and see socialism and think, "Oh, this must be great because we're being told this is capitalism. It's not capitalism." Or you're being told this is a Christian capitalist nation. It's not, but that's what you're being told it is. I can't blame people for being like, "Well, fuck this. I want something different." Their answer once again is wrong, but I can't fault people for being like, I just want something else because we're leaving young people just in absolute disaster. And like you said, I feel like it is almost incumbent upon us to, give our children something better than what we had.
yeah, it's like a civic duty. It's like, I mean, something, duty has been forgotten. It's a forgotten word.
Yes.
But it's a duty of ours. It's to posterity that we need to, stand up for. Even if you don't have little ones, you're supposed to hand off the same torch of freedom that you had, a better torch of freedom, and it's definitely one that's intact. And it's ours is definitely most certainly in jeopardy. And you talk about the socialism thing. I went from left to right. I was like left center maybe, but like, and now I'm realizing the left versus right paradigm is just a facade. But
Mhm.
I part of it was I did think I was supporting something righteous,
Right.
because like when I was supporting the left, because like you think like, I'm just standing up for people that are innocent or whatever, whatever the cause is. It does seem like morally right, and then you're like, you realize the lie in that, and now I'm realizing the lie from the right a little bit, because it's just this like,
Mhm.
total uh it's just chaos. I really just feel like it's two birds of the same feather, same wing. So
Yeah, well, I'm kind of interested about this because you were, and this is very tragic for me to witness for people. And I try to never be the I was right and shove it in people's face kind of deal. And I'm definitely not doing that here. But I kind of look at your trajectory and it breaks my heart because you were somebody that was at January 6th. You were at the Trump rally, that fateful day of what was it, July 10th, July 12th,
13th.
of July 13th, 2024.
Yeah.
Right. I'm sure everybody in Pennsylvania, specifically in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, knows exactly what they were doing that day and where they were at and what they were thinking when the news broke. I can remember this clear as day. My wife and I had my dad's truck, and we were getting some exercise equipment from my wife's coworkers' parents. Super nice. Love these people. Absolutely phenomenal people. And we're disassembling it. And I remember her saying, "Oh my God, Trump just got shot." And I'm like, what the hell just happened? And we were probably no more than 15 minutes away. Me and you could have went and got a beer literally 10 minutes later. But obviously, but like it was such a weird paradigm. And then, like I said, you're January 6th. So like you've been through it with Trump through it all. And you were a fan of Marjorie Taylor Greene as well. And I think this probably has a little bit of where your mind's going as well. At least from what I can understand. Seeing somebody like you and Marjorie Taylor Greene to go through all of this for Trump, and then what does Trump do to Marjorie Taylor Greene? He is denouncing her and saying that she shouldn't run and just goes scorched earth on her when she's been loyal to that guy since day one. Was saying so far as to say that Joe Biden should be impeached for a policy that Trump implemented when there were the whole eviction moratoriums through 2020. She said that Joe Biden should be impeached for that. She never criticized Trump for it, even though that was his policy. She stuck through it with him through it all, and he goes scorched earth on her. I'm like, man, over like the Epstein files, which once again his lackeys campaigned on releasing, to kind of like see that pivot. I'm like, man, just talk about ungrateful. Somebody that like stood on the floor of Congress all the time and went to bat for you, and you treat her like that. Thomas Massey, same deal. Like granted, they had a little bit of friction, but it was usually for stuff that Trump would agree with him on if it was a Democrat doing it. But when Trump does it, of course, you have to support it. So, and Massey endorsed the guy 2 times, I'm pretty sure, and then even campaigned for him briefly. So, like, just to see him backstab people like that, it's like, man, come on. These people really went to the mat for you, and this is how you're treating them. So I'm kind of curious where you're at now and why you got to where you're at.
So I mentioned earlier, like, yeah, I was disappointed first and foremost with him, through Operation Warp Speed. But I did give him the benefit of the doubt of as in like they probably weren't going to ever stop the stuff until there was a vaccine available. And I was never a fan of him, like, championing it and parading it, and which he still does. So that definitely irritates me. Obviously, I didn't get the vaccine; I got fired for it. So that was like my first bend with him. But I obviously gave him the benefit of the doubt. And 2024, I'd vote for him all over again. And I'm not like, I mean, I'm just like on the fence with him. I feel like he's really let us down in a lot of ways. And most of it's like the technocracy, and just I feel like I mentioned earlier about end times. I feel like if there's ever been, like, if you ever heard of the Mark of the Beast, I feel like if somebody's really constructing the beast system, it's him. He's really helping to construct it, which in a non-conspiratorial way, he's helping to set up a surveillance state with Palantir. $500 billion. That's not conspiratorial. Not just Palantir, OpenAI, Oracle. So they're collecting surveillance on all Americans. I didn't even realize this, but in 2016, he was talking about the biometric system, which biometric face ID. So like basically when people come in, and it will be all in the name of safety, people will buy into it because like, oh, it's the border. We want to protect the border, and I'm all about protecting the border, but anything that will be eventually used against who we call our enemies will be used against us.
Right.
And it took me a little while to grasp this, and I think it's going to take people a lot longer. I really feel like it's a Trojan horse that's being implemented. I was a fan of some of the stuff that, and sure, there's a lot there's a lot here, and I'm sure there's people that could push back against me about, some of the stuff I'm saying, but ultimately I've just witnessed a guy that has changed. When the guy that said he was running wasn't talking about taking Greenland, taking Venezuela, and a lot of the moves that he's doing, and his lackeys, like you said, like I mean, I was at CPAC, I got a picture with Cash Patel. Cash Patel, I thought was gonna go after Epstein, and they did a whole 180. Dan Bongino did a 180 on me. I mean, so I've been let down by more than just Donald Trump. And Pam Bondi, I mean, that's just a disaster to me. So there's just a lot of failures to me. There's a lot more that I'm witnessing too that's going on. Do I think there's things Trump's potentially doing to maybe? I don't think he hates America or is trying to destroy America. I do think there's things he's ultimately doing that's for the better of us. But some things that we're doing, we're giving powers that can be used against us eventually. So it's he's not going to be here forever. So I don't know if that helps kind of show you where my mind is on him. But yeah, definitely the betrayal of MTG as well. I mean, there is a lot there with MTG, as I've discovered. I mean, for her to bail out was a little bit weird for me too, to see. But this girl was wearing MAGA hats on the House and Senate floor. I mean, she was like the biggest Trumper out there, and that what happened there is just crazy to me. So, in Thomas Massey as well, Rand Paul. I mean, these are people that I support. I'm as I realize, I'm more libertarian than I think I am right, which I think libertarian can be pretty hard right in some instances. But yeah, I'm just for liberty, and freedom. So I don't know that Trump is fully about that sometimes anymore. So yeah, that's pretty much a decent explanation of where I'm at. I do have a little bit more with that, but yeah.
Yeah, I did a show about a week or two ago with my buddy Pete, because he kind of came from like the same background I did, where it was like very libertarian, and now he's further right than me, but I would say I'm probably like a center right libertarian, and people will probably debate me on that all day every day. But like looking at the Trump administration, I kind of went in pretty pessimistic, but there was some good stuff. Like some of the repealing of the civil rights legislation, the immigration stuff is good, although like right now that's kind of a disaster. And for all the optics stuff that's going on with ICE, it's like, okay, well, people are going to lose their mind anyway you put this, but like they got, by some accounts, only 50,000 more deportations than Joe Biden did in his last year. Okay, well, this was supposed to be the immigration hawkish administration. Like Joe Biden had literally trafficked people into this country. They paid NGOs, and funny enough, those NGOs and the judges are usually of one specific group, but they literally paid people to come into the country, and then it was basically so that way they would turn out to vote Democrat. And once again, these people institutionalized nepotism, where, like, once again, the Somali daycare fraud is all you need to know, where there's a giant ethnic enclave of people who basically say, okay, well, we're going to get our people in positions of power, and then we're going to use the taxpayers for our own benefit. Now, if you're a white person doing this, they would tell you that you're some awful, god awful Nazi, and World War II is about to break out again because white people are doing something to benefit themselves. But Somalis, Indians, Jewish people do it. It's okay. But once again, anybody, if you're a white European, you can't do that. The fact that, like, the whole Epstein stuff too, where it's like they turn around, they lied about it, they covered it up. They, like, Dan Bongino allegedly admitted it in private that, like, we're working to not let this come out. Like, how can you campaign for that so hard and then go in front of a live camera and tell people, yeah, he killed himself, when, like, nobody, you didn't even believe that. And then you said, keep the pressure up. And then all of a sudden, now it's your turn. It's on your desk and you're lying about it. And then it's Democrat hoax. And then there are no files. And then, oh, well, they're on our desk and they're going to be released. And then you release it and it's just fully redacted. Like, don't piss in my ear and tell me it's raining. Just be honest. So there were some legitimately good things. Like the first 90 days of Trump, to me, actually did seem good. And I was starting to get a little high on hopium. And then all of a sudden, we're bombing Iran, we're regime changing Venezuela, and now we're talking about literally handing cash to people in Greenland. Where I'm like, I'm not in favor of handing cash to anybody, but if you're gonna do it, at least hand it to Americans. Like, what the fuck are we doing with this Greenland shit? What the fuck does that benefit you or me? Like, how are you gonna make our lives better? I want to hear about that. I don't want to hear about how we're gonna buy Greenland, because China and Russia don't give a fuck about Greenland. They're saying the basically Israeli line of, what they do in the West Bank. If we don't take it, China, Russia will. They don't give a fuck. That's in our hemisphere. They're basically part of NATO because they're owned by Denmark. So what we don't need Greenland for anything. Can we at least take back Minnesota? Like, let's conquer Minnesota first, and then we could even like think about Greenland.
Yeah, I mean, so the Venezuela thing, that was crazy. It was just crazy that I can't believe we even, I mean, what we did there was pretty, was from a military standpoint, pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was, if Maduro like kind of let that happen in some regard, but if he didn't, I mean, that was amazing. Just in the military, from a military aspect. The Greenland thing, I have some thoughts on that. I do think ultimately we should be caring about our own country, and like you said, Minnesota. I think it's hilarious. I do think it's part of obviously the Golden Dome, which is something like the Golden Dome isn't just like the Iron Dome. It's actually way more complex in the sense of like controlling our citizenry. It's with the biometric system and all those things. The digital ID that he's trying to expand. I do think, we're on a convergence of with gold and silver hitting record highs. I don't know. I mean, you can see a financial. It's definitely something financially crazy, financial fallout or whatever it be. Which if we do go to digital currency, that will be a way you build the beast system, because if you don't comply with the government measures, then you can't buy or sell. So, and that's exactly what they say it is. So it's just little things that are happening, and I don't know. I don't like what I'm seeing, and so I've been throwing the red flags, and I've mentioned it a couple times now, but I think so many people are putting their faith in a man, and man will let you down. So I've just decided to put my faith in something way bigger than man. So
No, I completely understand. So, I don't want to say necessarily hopeful about Elon Musk being part of the administration, but I was skeptical, and there were competing factions. You had your Wall Street faction. So I always forget the banker's name that donated. It was like $190 million to Trump. And then obviously you had the neoconservatives in the Israel lobby, Miriam Adelson, Sheldon Adelson, Howard Lutnick, the largely Jewish organized Jewry, as they themselves call it, that were, trying to influence Trump. And then you had the PayPal mafia, your Mark Andreessen, your Vivek Ramaswamy, your JD Vance is kind of loosely connected with them as well. Maybe not loosely, but you know what I mean. Peter Thiel, all those guys kind of wanting a bit on the administration. Now, the reason why I said almost optimistic about Elon Musk, and he was Trump's biggest donor in 2024 with $270 million. It seemed like they at least looked at the bureaucratic state, which is a net negative for Americans, as the enemy, as in like the regulations, the red tape, and basically the ability for a government to go in and financially ruin businesses and ruin people. They looked at that as the enemy. And while the PayPal mafia and them aren't necessarily fully aligned with people like you and I, we have a common enemy in the total state of the bureaucratic state, right? We have a shared enemy there, but it seems like they kind of got cornered out. And then, of course, unfortunately, with the assassination of Charlie Kirk, it seems like they lost their communication with the younger generation. And now the PayPal mafia is largely gone. So now you pretty much have the neoconservatives and the Zionists and organized Jewry that are basically running the administration. And obviously with that also comes, Palantir. Like we literally have a team for anti-Semitism. Like they assembled a task force for anti-Semitism with Leo Terrell at the head, who sent task forces to major cities to make sure people aren't hurting one specific group of people. Like it's crazy to me. And then, like you said, with Palantir and the surveillance stuff that they're talking about, and Freedom Cities, and like you said, the Golden Dome too, biometric security. Um, it concerns me a great deal when they're constantly fixated on censoring speech of Americans if they're critical of Israel. And then we have a whole task force for it. And then we have Palantir who's able to, has access to basically the NSA and all our data. And then they're sending these, like I said, task force to major cities, and there's lawsuits. Like there's just a lady who literally got visited by the mayor or by the police in Miami because she commented about some mayor saying that Palestinian babies should die or something like that, like something horrible. All this coming together to this storm, it's like this does not look good. And if not handled correctly, you hand it off to President AOC or Newsom or somebody like that in 2028, and we're in some deep shit because the problem with Trump is that like Trump and the billionaires can hide from like the fallout of what they're doing right now if they don't absolutely demolish the left, like the quote unquote left, like the Democrats, Merrick Garland, who is literally, arresting women for praying outside of abortion clinics. Like if you don't punish those people and remove every ounce of power from them, when they get back in power, for people like us, we're fucked because
Mhm.
we don't agree with transitioning children, or that, all people are equal and we should have open borders. We don't agree with that. So the problem with Trump right now is if you're not willing to cross the Rubicon and absolutely destroy these people, they're going to destroy your base, but he'll be okay. And right now they're doing everything they can to flame tensions with them. I know I kind of threw a lot at you there, but whatever your thoughts are, go ahead.
Well, well, I mean, one thing you started at the end, and I guess it's one of my biggest problems is accountability. I mean, we just haven't had any accountability. I will be super excited, and I don't know how you feel about it, but he's made a mention even at the World Economic Forum. That's probably something we could talk about with the Board of Peace and everything. But he mentioned about people going to jail for 2020 election, rigging the 2020 election. I mean, I would be super excited about that because I do, not just by belief, by actually pounding the pavement, seeing houses that were, people were voting, that there were abandoned houses, and just everything we witnessed in 2020. It's not. It should be easier to believe now in 2026 that they're definitely capable of stealing an election. I mean, even if you look with all the Somali fraud, there's a lot there with how they just have illegals vote and they have all these crazy things. So accountability with Trump has been a problem as well. I think he would want to get these people. I do think he is vengeful and stuff like that. So I'm not really sure if he's just waiting for one big swoop or if the legal system's tying him up and they're just trying to go by the rule of law. But it's been incredibly frustrating. I mean, even James Comey found his like loophole out so far, and it's just so frustrating because these people did commit crimes. I mean, just on and on and on. I mean, the Epstein stuff, obviously, we touched on, but you mentioned something else there too, with Elon Musk. So Elon Musk, I mean, I think he did help save free speech by buying X, and there's a lot I support with him, but there's things I don't support with him. Like Neuralink isn't going to be like pushed on anybody, and I think it can be a wonderful thing. It can restore, maybe blindness, restore hearing, make people be able to. But there's also probably another side to that. Like anything that can be used for good can also be used for evil, and that's the thing I'm always trying to put in perspective. The other thing with Elon Musk is, I mean, I'm not a fan of robots. I don't, and he's saying, we're gonna have a bunch of robots here by the end of 2027. He's talking about universal high income. That, I mean, this is like straight out of Terminator movies and like sci-fi movies. This is stuff that and they don't end well for humanity. So that's stuff I don't support, and that's stuff that I think that Trump is ultimately help pushing forward. So that's why I'm on the fence, with a lot of things that I'm witnessing.
Mhm. Do you see yourself voting for JD Vance if he's the candidate in 2028?
So, I don't. He's super smooth. Like definitely a great talker. Maybe
Yeah.
Obama like in the sense of. I really did like what he was saying at the March for Life from a Christian perspective. I watched him even, go against some people at the turning point, and he did pretty well. His alignment with Palantir, though, is definitely frightening. I do think there may be a sinister side to him, but I really don't know. I don't, and Kyle, to be honest with you, in 2028, like, I don't even know, like, the way the world's going. I mean, I don't even know if they're going to try to have an election. I mean, I think Trump honestly does want to run for a fourth term or third term or whatever he says, all the stuff he says. I'm still definitely right leaning. I don't think there's ever going to be like a Joe Jurgensen's going to win or anything like that.
No.
So I don't, I'm definitely not going to vote for AOC or anything like that, or Gavin Newsom or Josh Shapiro. So am I cheering for the Republicans to win the midterms? For sure, just because I don't want to see Trump be a lame duck. I mean, I actually, whatever he's going to do, I want to see it come forward. You know what I mean? As weird as that sounds, everything I'm saying, it kind of might be kind of hypocritical. But I don't know. I just I know that I don't support left policies and things like that. So but I'm trying to just remove myself from this left-right paradigm and just realize I almost feel like they're working together, and we get sucked into it. Even with this ICE thing, you can see how they suck you into it. I think it's a really good example, because obviously I don't support 12 million people come in here, and I understand that it's going to be messy to get them out of here. Yeah. But there's I think there's ulterior motives there as well. So
yeah, I have friends who are a lot smarter and more well informed about immigration stuff than me, but I do think that foreign policy and immigration probably are the two biggest issues for the US right now. And immigration being like, I do think there's probably way more people than 12 million people that the Biden administration let in the country. And the problem is also like legal immigration, because my focus over the last couple of years has been, as I've seen just how immigration really has affected the country. It's like, okay, well, in my opinion, there should be an immigration moratorium. There shouldn't be a single soul that comes into the country to live here permanently until the average American can have families, can have savings, and can live actually a good life in America. Then we could think about having the conversation about immigration. But at this time, like, a whole bunch of people have to leave. And I'm not saying that I don't want these people to be treated unethically. I don't think they're, poor moral character. It was just lots of nefarious actors and some people who just had good intentions, but it ultimately came out to be that the average American now is suffering. They can't afford houses. They can't afford health care. They're getting outbid at jobs by legal immigrants who get, degrees from diploma mills. It's the whole problem with H-1Bs, right? None of these people should be here, so they have to go home, and we need to focus on making America for Americans again before we can think about opening our borders ever again. And I don't see that happening. And immigrations and customs enforcement, there's 22,000 people. 22,000 people can't get out, at minimum 10 million people, when really we probably need to remove probably at least 100 million people out of the country. 22,000 people can't do that. So how do you do it? Well, in my opinion, I think the laws on the books, you could already do that. Hey, we're going to tax remittances at like 95%. We're going to make it impossible for you to take your money offshores. This is no longer going to be a strip mall of a country. This is the United States of fucking America, right? You're not going to come here and then enrich yourself and then go retire back home in India or somewhere in Africa or Venezuela or Cuba. If you're here, you drop or Israel even, you drop every semblance of loyalty to another country, and you are now a member of this country if you want to be an American. And that's what we used to do. That's what we used to do back in the 40s. Like the Germans, the Irish, I don't want to say they're humiliated, but they were basically forced to drop every single semblance of loyalty to their prior countries to become an American. And that's what it has to be, because if not, then you get dual citizens. You get people who, once again, come here, look at it as a strip mall. You come here to work, and the dollar's worth a lot compared to their currencies back home. So they earn a ton of US dollars, and they send them back home. So their families are really well off. And then they take resources out of this country that should be for hardworking Americans. And you just can't have a country like that. And if you're not willing to fix that, then like, what are you doing? Because ICE, they're killing Americans, not like in large number, but like this turns out to be a giant clusterfuck every single time it happens. And then like we kind of said, you're emboldening the worst parts of the left, but you're not actually making the quality of life better for Americans. And if you were making the quality of life better for Americans while inflaming the left and like deporting millions of people, I'd turn the other cheek. But we're not getting that. We're getting the worst of both worlds rather than like at least good in one.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Minneapolis is so crazy. I mean, if you think about it, it's like a
Right.
portal of hell. I mean, you had the George Floyd, and then you had Renee Good, and now you have this guy yesterday, and they're all within like 3 blocks of each other. All these things that happen, and they I don't know if you've seen, but they exposed the Signal chat where there's actual like Minnesota politicians, Minneapolis politicians, people in the Waltz administration that were, showing where police are, letting people know. And, there is the Soros part, paid protesters, paid agitators.
Yeah.
And I do think that chaos is intentionally created to divide us. And I don't know if it's a distraction or to amplify it or whatever it be, but a lot of focus is being put on to this situation, and it's always going to be messy. But I think in the background of things is we're normalizing something that in the future could be very dangerous. So again, like I think we both agree that these illegals need to be removed, but are we normalizing in a sense and desensitizing ourselves, which we continue to do and we don't even realize, but to where we're going to be removing American citizens or whatever it be, the people that we think are enemies of the state or whatever it be, in a future. And it's like, oh, well, that's normal. Like, this is what we do to people. So, and I mean, you brought it up with the anti-Semitism stuff. There's people I might know that would firmly agree with that, but it's a very dangerous way of thinking, because that could be, they can expand that power. Any power that you give them, that power will be expanded. They'll never retract it. So I just think we're in dangerous, we're crossing dangerous paths. So
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's so crazy because few people, but I do see people defending it. And it's like, okay, some of the stuff that Trump, DeSantis, and a lot of these guys who are crying about anti-Semitism all the time, like if you just swapped out anti-Semitism for like anti-trans bigotry, you would look at them and be like, oh, you're ridiculous, like purple-haired, retarded feminist. But if you say anti-Semitism, now all of a sudden we have to take it seriously because, well, once again, who's one of Trump's largest donors? Who did Trump marry his kids off to? Who did Biden marry his kids off to? Constantly comes up. So I try not to be like that conspiratorial guy. And I know as soon as you start talking about this specific group, people think you're losing your mind, but you can't help but notice that there's a constant pattern. Who was 70% of Joe Biden's cabinet? This one specific group of people. Who gave Joe Biden the most amount of the money when he was in the Senate? This one group of people. Who runs banks? This one group of people. And I'm not saying there should be any harm. It's not like this is every single person of that nationality that's participating in this, but there is an organized group who looks at, all over the world and thinks, okay, well, we can control these people if we donate enough. And the mayor in Minneapolis, of course, is from this group as well. But like, once again, you can't have a country where, you have Jewish interests that are putting their interests above the interests of Americans, and where they're literally saying like, oh, we need to subvert the MAGA movement, which is what they said at some recent summit, where they're saying like, oh, well, we don't need to talk about that Israel has the largest gay pride parades. We need to talk about how Israelis are having a whole bunch of babies. Like, I don't, you're not my people. I don't care. Well, let's talk about Americans. Mm-hmm. So why are you guys trying to change like what America First means, and then saying that we need to come up with an America First package where we condition all this aid for Israel the next 20 years? You guys aren't my problem. The Palestinians aren't my problem either. I don't like the way they're being treated by the Israelis, but like, I'm sorry, these aren't my people. Same deal with the Somalians over there. I don't want you here. Why are you getting all my taxpayer money? Like, this is wrong any way you fucking slice it. We need to just focus on, like, when can America be for Americans? When can we just say, like, you know what? Sorry, America's full. Like, I wish what Trump campaigned on, I did a whole podcast on it of Trump's Agenda 47. The vast majority of it is wonderful. But, like, where's the follow through? Like you said, talking about arresting people in the 2020 election and stuff like that. Talking about arresting walls. When are we going to do it? Or
Yeah.
are we just going to sit here and post truth socials and make bomb ass tweets and then show some footage of us doing something? Are we going to get like the constant memes? Like, okay, it's cool. I'll agree. I'll clap, but like, when are we going to do something? Right? You've had a year. Charlie Kirk got fucking assassinated, who I had
Yeah.
my issues with, but like now looking back at it, this dude was on a great trajectory, and he he said a lot of the right things, and I think his heart was in a good place. He was in an impossible position, and the administration basically made a joke of it, if I'm being completely honest. The next day, there's Trump shoots out a AI picture of him and Charlie Kirk. And then like the groups that conspired to make that happen, every single person that was in those group chats should be investigated. And if they had anything to do with it, in prison, no questions asked, you go to jail. Right. But that's not happening. Well, like, what are we doing? If we're not going to respect the memory of the guy who everybody in the administration claimed they helped him get elected because he reached
Mhm.
out to the youth, what are we doing here?
No, Charlie Kirk's definitely the reason. Trump won. I would say. I mean, at least a huge part of it. And Charlie Kirk, for me, witnessing that death, and I mean, that was actually tragic for me. Like
Yeah.
just I identify a lot with him. Because of his faith and the way what he talked about, and I just think he was a powerful person, and he was a guy that started questioning what you were just talking about, and he had really good questions. And I think there was, I don't want to go Candace Owens, but I think there was some factors there. But I also think that regardless of what you believe, that APAC has an incredible influence on our Congress. I mean, to the point where the two people that are enemies of Trump are the two people that didn't accept money from APAC. So like
Mhm.
there's too many coincidences to not mathematically be possible here of like what's happening. Obviously, you've talked about Miriam Adelson. I don't think you mentioned, but ICE takes a training from the IDF. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, they the influence here is I mean, it's just uncanny. And it's something that you can't talk about for whatever reason. If you do talk about it, you're a crazy person, or you're racist or not racist, or a
Anti-Semitic.
bigot or what, yeah, and anti-Semitic, yeah. But it's not against a religion; it's against the elite people that are controlling, that run that country. I mean, Netanyahu has been around for a long, long time, and I don't think he's a good person. Anybody that's been in government for a long, long time, they might have been a good person at one point in time, but they've probably been corrupted, or they're
Mhm.
probably blackmailed, or in some form or fashion being controlled. So uh, you know, the whole Gaza thing with the that video, that video really creeped me out. That AI video of Trump with Gaza and like the golden statue and
Mhm.
like the Netanyahu dancing. Like, I mean, the fact that he shared it, like it was just it like that was actually a turning moment for me. I'm not like pro Palestine at all. Like
Mhm.
I would say I should have more like empathy towards those people and what's happened there. And I'm not saying like it's not tragic what's happened there, but if any side, I lean more to like just from a biblical principle of like Israel, like as a nation as a whole, but like the government is corrupt, and I just think ultimately um, the the control that they have is just it's probably part of the reason. Actually, I've seen a video of Netanyahu talking about Greenland. I mean, I do think an attack on Iran is it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time
Mhm.
here. So um,
Yeah, they're moving lots of assets over to Iran, and the only reason I don't think people really focused on this enough, but the whole 12-day war, which literally just kicked the issue down the road for a little bit, was sold on lies. The Venezuela situation sold on lies, and of course, there was a group who benefited from that, and of course, who's Paul Singer? Paul Singer is another Jewish donor who is running, Citgo essentially. And Citgo was thrown out of Venezuela back in 2009 by Hugo Chavez, who had some mildly critic mildly critical, sorry, things to say about Israel. And now, of course, we have to go overthrow them because they just happen to be friends with China and Iran and Russia. Even though the idea that like China, Russia, or even Iran were going to come defend Venezuela is laughable. None of those countries have force projection in any serious capacity. Not Russia, not China, definitely not Iran. But Paul Singer, of course, now gets his hands on Venezuela, and of course, well, he's a Jewish donor, so well, have to hand that off to him. And now, of course, what does Marina Corina Machado say? Who's the lady that wanted to be the president of Venezuela? Who Bush tried, and now she's saying, "Oh, we'll move our embassy to Jerusalem." Okay, all right. And then you know, Netanyahu's bragging to people in private about how he controls the U.S. He's the longest serving prime minister in Israeli history, and he literally, if you know anything about October 7th, he made sure that the Hannibal Directive was, activated on October 7th, which for those who aren't familiar, the Hannibal Directive is where Israel tells their soldiers to kill their own civilians because they would rather than be dead than be captured. And Yoav Gallant, the defense minister over there, strictly said, yes, we use the Hannibal Directive on October 7th. So we hear about how, the Palestinians are animals and awful people. And yeah, I'm sure there's a degree of that is absolutely true. But we don't hear about how Israel literally killed their own people. They admitted to killing their own people. The defense minister at the time admitted that. And then all of a sudden they go on a years-long war of the most surveilled area in the entire world. They knew this attack was coming because Egypt warned them that the attack was coming. And now, Biden got dragged by the ear for it. The Democratic base hate Israel. But guess what? No, well, Kamala Harris's husband is, her AIPAC handler because Doug Emhoff is Jewish. So, of course, have to carry along there. And, of course, Joe Biden is completely led by the ear by Israel. And then Trump gets in. And what does he say? I'm the most pro-Israel president ever. And he takes all this money from Mira Mandelson. And then his kid's married off to Jewish people. And, of course, we need anti-Semitism laws. How am I supposed to ignore all this stuff? And am I an anti-Semite for noticing all these things? I don't have any problem with Jewish people, but like when you notice all this, how am I supposed to be like, yeah, oh, that's just coincidence that like all these people who just so happen to be Jewish are all benefiting? And then we have speech laws about this where, now there was a video of somebody, the FBI getting sent to this dude's house down in Texas, and this lady down in Florida has the police show up to her house. And now, once again, we overthrow Venezuela, and now the guy overseeing the lawsuit against Maduro is Jewish as well. And he was also the guy that basically made people take hush money to not look into 9/11. Like, what am I supposed to make of all this? And then they also say, lest we not forget, HIAS, the Hebrew Immigration Aid Society, got 1,500 rabbis to say that America should leave their borders open January of 2017. What am I supposed to believe about this? Just, come on, man.
Well, there's a lot of the Jewish people in Israel, the rabbinic ones are treating Trump as a messiah, actually, like a messianic figure. So that's actually eye-opening in itself as well. And then the Board of Peace, which is something I think everybody should keep an eye on. It's there's a lot moving there. He talked about it replacing the United Nations, and for now it's not. But there's also a lot happening where there is a lot of world order changing, and it does seem like there's a new world order forming, and I do think Israel's at the center of it all. And money controls it all. So, and money is the love of money is the root of all evil. I do think ultimately the land of Israel is important to end times. I don't think it's the people necessarily of Israel. I think they've been dispersed and brought back. I think it's insane that it's a biblical prophecy that nation would be born again in one day, and it was 2,000 years later. So if you need any credence to the Bible or Bible prophecy, that's pretty amazing. But I do think that you're seeing all this events around it also gives more credence to biblical prophecy. But I do, when you get to the people of like Ted Cruz and Mark Levin and all that stuff, I think they're missing something there. I could be a little bit off, but I do think ultimately God's people are the Christians that are throughout the world, not
Mm.
the necessarily people in Israel.
Yeah, the way I've always heard it from people who know much more about scripture than me, that the true Israel is the church. It's not the nation state of Israel that magically got propped up in 1948 after they expelled a whole bunch of Palestinians there, and where I can't remember the original guy's name, but he literally said they brought terrorism to the world. People think Muslims were like the founders of terrorism. No, it was the original founder of Zionism, and he admitted once again they brought terrorism to the world, where Christians, Jewish people, and Muslims all lived in peace in that area. But then all of a sudden in 1948, pure chaos arrives. And then they admit, yeah, we brought terrorism there. So what? Um, it's so crazy. But yeah, I think that also you see this group also trying to subvert Christian values. Because what do you hear? America's a Judeo-Christian, it was based on Judeo-Christian values. It's Christian values because I'm sorry, Jewish people weren't a major part of the founding of the United States. This was a largely Christian majority. And to try and say that, oh, this is Judeo-Christian, Theodore Herzl, thank you, Kareem. Yeah, exactly. He said they brought terrorism to the world. But yeah, like this is a Christian nation. And once again, I'm okay with Jews living here and having their own interests. You just can't have your own interests at the expense of other people. And that goes for everybody. I don't care who you are. Nobody should be able to come here and, say, hey, we're going to have you send billions of dollars to our country. No, this is America. We are a sovereign country, and it's about damn time we start acting like one.
For sure. Yeah, and I do on the contrary, the Muslim movement in our country, I do think is a way to subvert the Christian principles here, and to do to kind of really like just take us from within, in a sense, with the Sharia law and all that stuff. I think it's I do think it's a problem as well. But yeah, like you said, sovereign nation. Nobody should be running the show like that. So
Yeah, exactly. And all those people have to go home too. So if people hear you knocking Jews, that they think that, oh, you must love Muslims. It's like, no, no, no. Like I can love people individually, but as a group, if you're not like part of the founding stock of Americans, then you got to go home. Like average Americans are not like deferring having kids. Like most people have kids now when they're around my age, which I hate to be kind of like in this whole, an average statistic, because I like to believe I'm better than average, but obviously most people aren't. Just on by the way things work. But if Americans aren't having kids at like a younger age and families are being broken apart, and we have drug problems and families are in debt and people can't save, people can't afford healthcare, cars, or work a decent job and make ends meet, then like why what are we doing as a country? Like if we aren't leaving a better country for the next generation, then I'm sorry, I think like whatever that is deserves to fail. If any ideology or workplace, country, whatever cannot lead to prosperity for the next generation, it rightfully deserves to fail, because what is the purpose of a country if it's not to serve the people that are in there?
100%, and that's where we're at right now. I think we're heading in a bad direction. We have 38 trillion in debt. The dollar is crumbling. We're expanding our military budget. We're now a Department of War. So usually with financial crisis comes global conflict. And I think there's a lot of signs that point to that. And that's not just like me just speculating. The world's moving like that. And I don't know if that's ultimately for our better good, because in that you could have conscription and all these other things that could happen with that, if it would go really haywire south, and definitely could. Now I do know that war is becoming less with bodies, more with drones and technology, but regardless of the fact, there is the meat grinder over there in Russia and Ukraine that was also said to be ended in one day, by the way, and still is ongoing. So
yeah, I hate to say that I called that, but judging by the way he was talking about it, I knew that they had no plan. So sounded good. And I should add this at the very end here, that like if you chose to vote in 2024, the only person to vote for was Donald Trump. have never said anything otherwise. I didn't vote because I kind of figured things were going to play out this way. But once again, if you felt compelled to vote, are you seriously going to vote for fucking Chase Oliver, the gay dude who hates Ron Paul, right from the Libertarian Party? Like, no, you can't seriously vote for this guy or even feel good that you voted for that guy. As far as like Kamala Harris, that's just like a humiliation. Like a retarded black woman with a gay with a fucking Jewish husband. I'm sorry, no. That's too much of a humiliation for a country. So at least in Donald Trump, he was funny. He was saying the right stuff, and then JD Vance at least seemed competent in his debates. You could question the integrity of all these people as we have in this very show, but once again, there was in my mind there was no other option. And like, okay, Karine Jill Stein, all right, yeah, she's right on a lot of stuff, but she's also some fucking green wacko, which nobody supports. So, Shane, any final thoughts before we wrap?
Well, I mean, when you were just talking about, I mean, the campaign was totally electric in 2024, like towards the end with the trash and the McDonald's, and I mean, in the RFK, like that was really dynamic. And there's a lot of things I support with RFK and the Make America Healthy Again, but there's that movement's kind of got subverted as well and got into the weeds. And the one thing I'm a little bit leery about him, I'm sorry to add this in at the end, but that he's talked about the wearables thing, which I do think that's a red flag. It's an infringement on privacy and liberty and health. So name your show here. So I just think that's something they want to make mandatory in the future, which they could put that off as a good thing. But so these are things that I bought into, and there are really good things happening as well with the vaccine recommendation going from 72 to 11. Even chemtrails being talked about. I don't know if you're into that or not into that, but they're definitely poisoning us from the air or every other way they can. The food pyramid being turned upside down. I think there's things you probably support with that. So there are ultimately things I'm happy with, but I'm just very weary of what's happening in our country and with this administration. I do think that we just need to be putting our faith in something bigger than a party, Democrat, Republican, Libertarian. It doesn't matter. I think we should be putting our faith in something that's eternal. What that is for somebody, that's up to you. But I have found that Jesus Christ will change your life in an amazing, glorious way, and that there's nothing bad that comes from it. There's so many wonderful things, and the biblical principles are life-changing in itself. There's so much wisdom. People that don't even believe in Jesus Christ as Savior believe that Jesus Christ taught many great lessons. So there's a lot there to take for good. And I would highly suggest if anybody's interested to reach out to me to talk to me about it, even you, Kyle. And a great place to start is obviously the four Gospels: John, Luke, Matthew, and Mark. So that's kind of my final thoughts.
Nice, man. Well, yeah, it was awesome to talk to you again. I'm really glad we could finally set this up. I normally do foreign policy reporting on Sundays, but this is a little bit of more of a refresher because not only do I not have to do all the work, it's also just really good to talk to you, man. So anybody, anywhere people could find you, support you, any of that good stuff, feel free to drop it and we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, so I share a lot of stuff on Facebook just because I feel like that's a weird place to share stuff, but I feel like you can reach the everyday person. And I have somewhat of an audience there. And I always said if I can change one person's life or speak truth to one person's life, it's worth it. I am on X. I've started going on there a little bit more at Chesher because there's just a lot on there. It's a crazy, crazy place. But I do share a lot of stuff on Telegram. It's actually a really cool app. You can use it as a messaging app, but I use it as a channel. It's Patriotic Truth. Because you can check it at your own leisure, and I'm constantly sharing stuff on there. It's a great place to actually save videos and then share videos. So, and then I did want to give a shout out to the Patriot Voice. He's on X. He's really been blasting all this stuff that a lot of the stuff I highlighted. So the Patriot Voice on X, if you want to check him out, his name's John. He actually has a big lawsuit against the ADL. So it's pretty crazy. But yeah, man, I really appreciate you having me on. I love talking with you, and it seems as time progresses, we get a little bit. We've always agreed with most, but I think we're
Yeah.
agreeing with more and more. So
Yeah, I told my buddy Pete, because he came in pretty optimistic about the Trump administration. I told him I kind of came closer to him over time and he came closer to me. And I think we're kind of doing the same thing here, where you were a lot more optimistic, I was a lot more pessimistic, and you got more pessimistic, but I got a little more optimistic, but still skeptical. So it's kind of interesting to see this grand realignment, and even like on people who consider themselves ostensibly on the left. I find myself um on some things we agree with quite a bit. So it really seems like, kind of like you said throughout the show, the left versus right paradigm doesn't quite describe it accurately anymore, because there are definitely left leaning people who support abolishing the income tax, support ending wars and all this stuff, and support just kind of focusing on America. It's like this growing coalition, and I'm interested to kind of see where it goes. Who knows if it's too late? Maybe it's not, but I think you and I will continue to do what we do, and that's speak the truth, man.
yeah, absolutely. Divided we are weak, united we are strong. So divided we are intentionally.
Well, beautiful. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for checking this out. Make sure you go follow Shane. I just fixed that now for my Twitter. Make sure you go to acommoncrown.com, look us up on YouTube, check out Slow Down. Tomorrow night is 5 till midnight. And of course, go to the Great Megalodon on Substack, and all the links are in the description below. Shane, always a pleasure.
All right, man. Thanks.